Welcome to the Risk Review series, where we unpack how risk is changing across industries and how leaders need to evolve and learn with the same. Today, we begin with the heart of insurance ecosystem, risk placement. I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Dipan Anjaria, Head of Placement at Gallagher in India. Dipan works at the intersection of clients, markets, and partners, bringing deep insight into how global capacity, regulation, and evolving risk appetite shape placement strategies. Deepan, over the last few years, we have seen a clear shift in how corporate and institutional clients approach insurance. What major trends are you seeing today in terms of the risk transfer philosophies of corporate and institutional clients?
So we keep having dialogue with the risk manager and the key decision makers in the organizations. And we come across 3 to 4 major themes in the conversation. So first being is that the risk managers are now challenging the traditional insurance products, and they want to understand the true exposure of their risk, which the organizations are facing. And they are very keen and open to explore new insurance solutions. So they do not want to mechanically or routinely, renew their insurance program through the standard insurance policy. So that's the first and foremost. Second trend which we are seeing is that the decision makers are looking for some kind of visibility and certainty in terms of the premium budgeting, because there have been some volatility in some lines of business in insurance. So that is something which is asked for. Third one is the ask for the simpler processes in terms of the how claims are going to be settled, whether the insurance carrier, risk carrier is having a process which is aligned with his specific industry requirements, or it is taking into account the practical realities of a specific sector in which the client is operating, and whether we can work out some standard claim documentation. Fourth one is for the clients where although India on the whole is a price sensitive market, that's what we have seen so far. But the clients which are newly globalizing, which are going outside India with their products and services, they are now more concerned about the risk which is getting covered, in terms of depth and in terms of how broadly the insurance program is covering their risk, rather than being solely, focused on the pricing. And the last trend which I would like to touch upon is basically the sector specific solutions, because we have seen good amount of growth in renewables now. Right. We are coming across risk like floating solar plants, BESS. So these are semiconductors in terms of solar cell manufacturing. So these are the risks which India had not seen before.
Correct.
So there is a lot of talk for the sector specific solutions in the insurance.
Fair. I think that makes more sense because I think the transactional buying to strategic thinking is now clearly, getting identified.
Yeah, that's right.
Moving on, now staying with that thought, property insurance also continues to be one of the most dynamic segments in India. So how would you describe property insurance landscape in India, and what are the changes that you foresee in the coming future?
So property insurance pricing has been quite volatile in last few years. And again, this year also the pricing is soft. But still there is some kind of anxiety amongst the insurance buyer as to how long this trend is going to continue. So the main driver of property insurance program strategy is going to be the long-term visibility, and again, as we talked earlier, on the budget certainty on the numbers. And since the pricing is soft, the clients are also looking to do more with the same premium number. So, probably a few years ago, if the client did away with the BI coverage, on account of the pricing, which was, pretty stiff, now they can again look back and they can review their decision, and they can try to expand the scope of the programs. So that's how the strategies are shaping up, and that's how we are advising as a Gallagher to clients as to how to leverage the maximum advantage of the current soft market pricing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. in the geopolitical environment, now risks were once considered very peripheral and people were afraid to talk about it, afraid to acknowledge it.
Right.
And very much now it has become a part of the boardroom discussions. There is not even one discussion, a board meeting or a AGM where people are not discussing risks, be it
Right.
geopolitical, be it
Yeah,
any
yeah.
other. So what are your views on insurance strategies for ensuring political violence, considering the present situation and how the markets are?
So this is a crucial missing piece from most of the risk transfer programs and the insurance programs which we come across. But it's high time that client looked at it, from the enterprise level perspective. And because now terrorism, earlier it was only about terrorism few years back, and now we have seen war also in
Right.
last 12-month period. And the way the military engagement is conducted in terms of the use of long range missiles and weapons and drones and all. So we cannot say today as we speak that a particular location is beyond the reach in terms of the possibility of the physical damage from any war or war-like operation.
Correct.
So clients should actually work out a proper strategy for covering the critical assets facilities against physical damage, against the risk of business interruption arising from the perils like terrorism and war. As again, it is also prone to cycles in pricing depending on the geopolitical developments. The low cost availability of this insurance cover is not always taken for granted.
But do you think that there is a lot of development which is going to happen again in the year of 2026 because the way the countries are moving and the way the situation is changing rapidly? Like
Right.
24 hours, 48 hours, there are threats which are happening, there are
Yeah,
incidents which are happening. So
Yeah.
what is one thing that you think that organizations must definitely look at from a Gallagher's perspective?
So our advice would be to enter the program when the risk is not perceived very high by the underwriters. So again, if there is a query, if the policy is required when there is already some talk of some hostility going to break out, this kind of situation, the insurance cover is not going to be cost effective.
Correct.
So if we look back in the aftermath of Operation Sindhu, there were lots of queries from the risk managers and the clients
Right.
for war cover, but that did not result into the actual uptake of the insurance policies. Because again, the things started
Subsided.
getting back to
Yes.
normal and those things. But I think there is a need for a proactive approach,
Right.
in terms of the political violence insurance.
I think prevention is always better than
Yeah, that's
cure.
right. That's right.
Fair. Finally, now we are at a pivotal moment for the Indian insurance industry. How do you see the current market structure and the changes envisaged under the Sabka Bima Sabki Raksha amendment to the Insurance Act impacting the placement of risks going forward?
So the Sabka Bima Sabki Raksha Act is quite progressive and quite transformative. It talks of a lot of good things in terms of increase in the FDI limit for the insurance company from 74% to 100%. The decrease in the net owned fund requirement for the foreign insurance if they want to set up branches in India. And also in terms of intermediaries, they are introducing MGAs for the first time. So a lot of progressive steps which are envisaged in the act, and with the entry of new players and new capital, we can see that for client the options are going to increase. The depth of the market is going to increase, and the placement is going to be much more dynamic than what it used to be earlier. So I think we look forward to the interesting times when the act really, is
Shapes up.
notified, and we can see some changes on the ground.
I think that's going to be an interesting time ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dipan, for sharing such insightful perspectives. Your views on placement, strategy, market evolution, regulatory changes, Sabka Bima, Sabki Raksha, they all, I think, will help every one of us. We appreciate you being a part of the Gallagher's The Risk Review series. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ishani.